everyone who has joined us so far. I'm sure there are more that will come. But today we will, used to it being on my screen. Sorry. Today we will have myself speaking with a few vendor updates and some information at the end of the session. Mitch will be talking about Pocket Up and SASBOSS tips and tricks. And Jason, our TAC Manager, will be talking about some TAC updates and some information around troubleshooting. Keep clicking that one. So what are we discussing today? We have some vendor updates around Webex and a new product that we are launching today. We have some TAC updates, as I said, from Jason around troubleshooting for Webex. We have Mitch talking about PoCing it up and the benefits of building a PoC for your clients and the ability to utilise that to then get a sale from that and move into a live phase. And again, Mitch will be talking about SASBOSS tips and tricks around APIs and how to use APIs successfully with the SASBOSS platform. And of course, we'll have Q&A throughout the session and at the end as well. So to kick it off, we'll have some vendor updates. So Webex. So if most of you who joined us last month will remember that we talked about the BLF call pickup notification around that you can monitor calls with it. You can have some audio visual indicators similar to the one that's actually shown on the screen there. You have the ability to ignore or pick up calls as it shows you there with the ignore and pick up. And it is very useful when working remotely from your team and you're able to see when they're getting calls, you're able to pick up those calls. You can also, of course, ignore those calls. But that particular pop-up, when you don't necessarily want it to be utilised, can be quite annoying and can become a problem where it's popping up all the time, it's interfering with the things that you're doing. Even if you're trying to make a phone call, it might pop up and just annoy you or annoy your clients in particular. So the only way that you were able to turn that off prior was be able to do that through Webex. We are pretty happy that we can now do that through SASBOSS. That was released last Wednesday on the 6th, and you're able to enable Webex BLF notification. You can either turn it on or off through SASBOSS. So if you've got a client that is complaining to you or someone within your own business, if you're using Webex, that they're having too many BLF notifications come off and they'd like to turn it off, you're able to now do that in the back end instead of just having to be able to do that through the Webex client. So if you can go in and turn that off or on through SASBOSS. So that's a great release. So I know quite a few of you have been asking for that for quite some time. So it is available now. It is live in SASBOSS. So next, we're launching a product called Datagate. I'm sure most of you who have been to the road shows and a few of our other webinars that have gone on have heard about Datagate, and the Datagate is coming. It is a telecom billing platform, but it is also more than that. You can combine your billing feeds from multiple telco vendors. So if you have, whilst you're transitioning to Access4, you have, say, Telstra, or you have Optus, you have Vocus, any of those vendors, you can get them to feed their billing feeds into Datagate, and you're able to bill from a single platform, and you can get Access4 feeds into there, and you can bill from that single platform for the vendors. But on top of that, you can also integrate multiple applications. So it will also drag in Azure billing, AWS billing, other types of billing. You can drag in billing from ConnectWise, Autotask, and other platforms similar to that as well. And then you can have that generate and send a single bill to your customers. And your finance team will love you because it'll streamline a lot of the operations within the billing process. So they don't have to do as much manual work. And it'll reduce the hours that they're spending at the end of every month to do the billing and invoicing. So I recommend to organise a demo for that platform, to reach out to your partner growth manager and get a demo done for that. Just as a quick sort of show here, we have the billing invoicing screen there on the screen. So we have a couple of images. So you have a sample invoice on the left-hand side there, and in the background you have a portal view of the invoice. I know the images aren't great, but if you get a demo, you'll get to see there's a little bit more detail. And in the portal view, you've got a product list in the background, right in the background there. So it is a really good product. It will bring everything together There is a small charge on the billing process for that, but it is great product. It consolidates everything together. And I think your finance team will thank you for bringing all of that together so they can just do simplified invoicing and capability to send out an invoice to all your clients really quickly and easily. There we go. Okay, so over to Mitch for Pocket Up.
Awesome. As all of you should be aware, we do provide PoC's or proof of concepts for you to use as a sales tool for your customers. So a little bit about, we talked about a bit about this last week, last month, sorry. But to go a bit more depth, sandboxing is more around being able to spin up the services before going live. Proof of concept gives you the ability as more of a sales tool. So we do require you to register it just because we need to know what's going on. There is some charges and things like that to go with that. It also has a shorter time period. So instead of the 90 days from a sandbox, you're limited to 60. Once again, we're not charging you for any of the BroadSoft licenses. However, we will be charging you for third-party licenses, as well as we do also allow external calls. So calls outbound, and they will be charged as well. These will be charged to you. It's whether you take them on board yourself or advertise those costs to your customer as well. It's up to you. But it gives you a way of being able for your customer to actually test out the system, not just believe you and what they're saying. It means they can install any applications they need or Webex, so they can test out Webex calling, all that kind of stuff. Set up their IVRs, their call flows, all that kind of situation, and get them testing it before they go live. They're not just listening to you with what you're saying or listening to us saying our product works. They actually get to test it live with some users and do some test calls. With that, why would you want to provide a proof of concept? So it is a sales tool more than anything else. So with that, few lines here, you get to increase your partner close rate. We do know internally that partners who do proof of concepts to customers are more likely to actually close those deals. Being able to give that to your customer is more likely that they will continue with it. You also get to show the decision makers at the prospect what you can do and what you can't. So there's no decision making after the fact or changes afterwards. You get to do all that live as you're doing your proof of concept as well. And also helps you going through their onboarding experience. With the proof of concept, you get to train some of their staff or all of their staff beforehand. You get to train the decision makers beforehand on the software rather than waiting till the last minute to go live with it. So a little bit more control of a rollout as well from that perspective. So when doing a PoC for your customers, a few things to be aware of with that, and a few things to take to gather beforehand as well. So knowing who your stakeholders in your business are, who will be the ones testing out the products and all that as well. So that's really key, just to know who needs to be involved. So getting people from different departments, as well as getting people knowledgeable and the actual leads of the business to get familiar with the product. So they're the ones who, if you win them over, they're more likely to proceed with it. Also talking about the success criteria for the scope. So doing a proof of concept is great, but if there's no, if you don't know what the success criteria or the failure criteria is of what's going to make them go with you, there's no point in doing it. It's just going to be, they get to use the licenses for a few months, then they're going to go with someone else. So discussing where it's key, what they were trying to fix, all those kinds of things is also great. And finally, confirm the scope. So making sure, deciding what the solution is, rolling it out, giving them the training information, how long you want to do that proof of concept for. So we're giving you 60 days, but you don't want to give your customer 60 days, of course. Give them a week, 2 weeks, so that way they're actually doing the testing as they see fit. Shorter time periods means that you can have catch-ups as you go as well. And also there's costs. So there is licensing costs for third-party applications and costs and things like that as well. So just knowing, will you take that on board? Are you going to split the cost with the customer, or is the customer just going, are you just going to pass those on to your customer, and making sure that they are aware of them as well beforehand? So don't want to try and give them some bill shock with that at the end. As I mentioned, timeframes. So timeframes are very important. So we are giving you 60 days, but if you give the customer that whole 60 days, means at the end of that proof of concept, they're going live. We're going to start billing you for all the licenses, everything like that. You may not have all the services turned on yet. You still have porting to deal with, all those extra things as well. So give them a shorter time period, making sure they're happy with it, and you can fix up any issues there are before going live. So that way you can continue with it. It means that at that end of 60 days, if you turn on Fastport to put on the numbers earlier, it means you can go live at the end of that. Also confirm it with your PGM or your SC. And by that, I mean, sometimes proof of concepts are not perfect for every solution. Something like Teams calling, it's a bit easier, but you need to be aware of the Microsoft licensing involved with that as well. Or if it's a full contact center solution, we'll help you design it and making sure that the right licensing is in there, all that kind of stuff, as well as if they need toll ring, we'll work with it so that you're not being charged for the toll ring for the whole 60 days, only parts of it and only the people you need to, the bare minimum we can get away with, and then expand the licensing afterwards. So we'll work with you to make sure that we're giving the customer the best opportunity possible, the best feature set possible, and try and keep that cost down for both you and the customer as well. Yep. So during the POC, so while you're actually doing the testing and the customer's doing the testing, a few things to remember. Catch up with them regularly, making sure that they're happy with what's the solution, any changes they want to fix up, any call flow changes, any of that kind of stuff as well. Have those catch-ups, discuss those, make sure you're fixing those things as you go and don't leave it till the last minute. If you can be a bit more agnostic during the proof of concept, it shows that you are willing to be more flexible and get things up and running and be more proactive with them long-term as well. But also means that you're giving them the best opportunity possible. You're not showing them that what you've put on the piece of paper initially is what has to be done, and then you're not going to be changing it at all. You can give them lots of different options around different ways you can do the call flow. You can show them if the customer wants it one way, explain to them why deploy them that, let them test that, and then maybe offer them a different solution of why a call queue may be a better fit for them over 100. Show them the calls that they're dropping, and then show them what a call queue can do for them, and maybe it could be a better solution for them. So things like that, having that regularly catch up and regularly going through what they're having experiences with can really help improve the sale as well as boost to the next sales level as well. So bringing on more services into the deal. And then after the POC rather, making sure that they are happy if they wish to proceed, get that porting in order as soon as possible, as well as do fast port if possible as well. So getting that up to speed, getting the services turned on and getting it all live as fast as possible afterwards. At the end of the 60 days, we are turning on billing, so that will go live from our side. So as soon as you can turn on those extra services, get in that porting order, get numbers into the system, get on live earlier rather than waiting for the last minute just before the end of the go live kind of thing as well. So getting that kind of data and all that stuff earlier during the project, and then at the end of the 60 days means you can go live, start billing a customer, and that's a really fast turnaround time if you get the contract signed during that time as well. And as I mentioned earlier, speak to your PGM or your SE at any point you want to do a POC. We are always willing to help you out with them, assist with the sale, get all the services turned on. We'll assist you with any part of that as well. And that includes setting up the POC with the customer or explaining how a POC can help for your customer as well. So we can mention in your monthly meetings if you wish to bring it up.
Just before you go on,
yeah.
We've had a question in the chat. Can you please touch on the time criticality of the sending of logs in Webex and the time required for TAC to review the logs? So we've got an answer. The most important thing is to note the time of a reported issue and send the logs and CED right after that. Our engineers will be looking for that event in the logs. So it's best if it's right after, or else we will have to trawl through hours of logs. After you. I want to add to that.
No, I was just going to say, from basically summarising that answer from John just then, because it was a very technical, long-winded answer, as soon as possible, because it means that we can get the correct data, is kind of how that comes back to our engineering team. Awesome. Was there any other questions?
No, that's it for the moment.
Awesome. And continuing on to my favourite topic, automating within SASBOSS. A bit about that. I will talking through today's subjects, everything like that. What I will be running through did come from a partner. So it was a suggestion that a partner had, and how we've built upon it. I've built upon it to build it into something that I can use internally for myself and my team. And I'll run through a bit about that. Just a quick recap. Access4 does have 3 APIs available to you. The SASBOSS provisioning one, which is what everything today is going to be talking to. So getting services, being able to turn on different services, as well as pulling data from a group or an enterprise level. Our SASBOSS billing API. So that's more integrating back into your billing system to be able to get your call flow, your call data requirements, and charges back and forth as well. And finally, iCall Suite. So being able to pull reporting directly from iCall Suite rather than having to manually do it all yourself directly from SASBOSS. Also being able to pull into a third-party platform, something like Power BI or something like that as well, allowing for additional layers of being able to analyze those reports. That Power BI one at the end there is something that a lot of our partners have been providing to their customers. And with that, it allows the customer to be able to analyze the data in a way that they're more familiar with. So that's always a good option for customers if you know they have an analytical department of some sort, or someone who does reporting internally. Ask them if they're more familiar with Power BI. It could be a good option of being able to upsell it as well. Something that mentioned last time was getting started with the API. I did kind of skip over that a little bit. So there is 2 steps to it. All services, anyone using our API does now have a whitelisted IP address. So any IP address you're doing the communications from doesn't need to be whitelisted. It's just an email to our TAC team from your business email address or your partner email address into our system saying which IPs to whitelist. That could be anything from your single IP from your office all the way up to some people who are doing development work from home if you're working remotely, so that their home IPs, so they've got statics, will work as well. Please don't ask us to whitelist a dynamic IP because it's going to go work for a certain amount of time and then it will fail for you. And then we have to update it for you in the future. The other one there is our API documentation. So that is available on our Partner Resource Center. It is a quite long document in there as well. If you need any assistance trying to find that or anything like that, your PGM or your SC will be able to provide that for you as well. And it is a very long analytical document. If there's something that you're trying to do and there's just no API available in there as well, reach out to our TAC team as well. They'll reach out to our development team and see what we can do about adding into that document as well. So it's not a very static document. We are adding to it as well as we have requirements to. So as I mentioned, this is an example that came through from a partner last week. So they had a customer who wanted to turn on all their services to go to voicemail after hours. They'd already preset the business hours schedule into the system because they already have an IVR that's doing it for their main line, but all the users wanted their calls to go to voicemail as well. So I kind of said to them, there's 2 ways of doing it: manually, which is what we're looking at on the right here, because the after hours details were already preset, all the call detail, the time running details were already preset. It was a matter of just going into every service, putting in that call forward selective based on that time of day routing, and then applying it. However, we were looking at about 60 to 70 users. So when you times 30 seconds by that amount of time, that amount of data, and this is the second customer they had who requested this, it can add up. So what I suggested was the other way we can do it is I can send you a quick PowerShell script that can pull some of the data or send the data to SASBOSS. You can get your IPs whitelisted, and then you can just enter all the service IDs and then manually edit it yourself as well. So that's the way we decided to go with. What I then provided to them just quickly is the script you're seeing on the right here. It's a very basic script, really quickly generated. So I took the API call from that API document from PRC, put that into an application called Postman, which is an API generation application if you haven't heard of it. And it kind of, you put in the API call, what data you need to send with it or you need to get from it, and then what language you want it to be in, and you can export the config you want. So this on the right there is a quick PowerShell script pulled directly from that application. And it's a little bit hard coded. So really fast to generate, runs straight away. There's no problem with that. However, as you can see there, all the service IDs had to be known. We had to generate or pull a list of all service IDs from SASBOSS, which is quickly done within SASBOSS, but once again, could also be automated in the future. The API tokens had to be manually added. So you do have to have API tokens for any user who is running these. And as at the top there in the headers, so it's just your username and a token that gets generated with your username, and that's an API call by itself as well. So that had to be pre-done, copy those data into here. It's also hard-coded to send calls to voicemail. So yes, for this case, this is exactly what we wanted. However, some customers may not want that. They may want the option to change it in the future, or some users may be voicemail, others may be someone else's voicemail, or a group shared voicemail box, something like that. So there's a few different ways they can do that. And the other con with this one was the preset of schedules. So it wasn't a problem because we already had the schedules preset, but with this going forward, they may have another customer where that may not be set in the future. So I did send this across to them. It worked for them. It got it all set up, which was nice. However, a few cons that when I was creating the script, I wasn't really too happy with, and I wanted to kind of build upon. So from that, I kind of built upon this script. I took those tokens that were already generated and put into the header, and I moved them to another script. That way, it's going to pre-gen those tokens. Anytime I run this script, it's going to automatically generate some new tokens for me. This way, the tokens do expire. There is time limits on them. So this way, I don't have to generate new tokens, run the scripts, and manually update those. It's just going to get them new every time. It also meant that from the purposes of today's presentation, I wasn't accidentally going to share some tokens or my username in the system as well. But as you can see there, I've also updated it. It's a little bit more easy to read. It's a bit more broken out as well. So a few changes I made to the script from that point. The other things, however, we still have the same cons. So still service ID still have to be known. All calls being sent to voicemail. I wanted to kind of change those two as well. Easy one was service IDs. There's another API call that we can use to pull service IDs from a group or an enterprise. So I quickly, once again, I use that same token PS1 script to do that token on the slide. I re-entered that into this script as well. So still using that same pre-gen script that I used, importing it here. And this is going to allow me to pull any service for any group or enterprise that I have permission to access. So from a reseller, this is going to be any of your groups or enterprises. And when I run this script, it just prompts me what's the group service ID or group ID, or what's the enterprise ID. It's going to pull all services from whatever number I entered there. This makes it a little bit easier so that I can then import that data into the other script. It also just exports it to a JSON file for me as well. So it means that I can then use this script for other scripts in the future if I wish, or I can then analyze that data in a different way as well. So I can use it for different reportings or something like that as well if I need to in the future. I then import that script back into my time of day. So pulling those data back into the time of day script that I pre-created, this means that when I run this now, it's going to prompt me for my username. It's going to prompt for my credentials. That's it. It's going to pull that JSON file that I've pre-generated, and then it's just going to run. It's going to apply those time of day scripts to any user within the system. And at the bottom there's a bit of an error message captured there, saying if it is going to error, don't show me a standard PowerShell error message, which can be a bit confusing. It's only going to show me the exact reason or response from SASBOSS. So when I take the script, it's then going to apply. And if I hit play on this, I run this script, it's then going to pull all my services. As you can see there's a few services at the top, which will fail. But the rest of them says it's been updated and created. So when I take this, I take the script output and looking at here, the first one runs fine. Next few there comes back saying call forward selective unavailable. So call forward selective is not available in Office users. So that's the reason why that's errored out. And at the bottom there, it just keeps running. It applies to the next one, next one, next one. So at the bottom there, it's going to keep running. It's applying that call forward selective to some call queues, some IVRs in there as well. Any service that can. And if there's any other service that didn't have call forward selective enabled for it or available for it, it's going to error out with that same error message. Means you're getting a nice output as well, so you can see what services it's enabled for, which ones it hasn't been, and if it failed for whatever reason on any of the other services, you'll be able to see that straight away. So really easy being able to see that data, and it meant that going into 60 services earlier for half an hour to update them kind of thing, turns into what you just saw of running that PowerShell script and 30 seconds later having the output available to analyze. This does, with this, there is the caveat. I probably spent 3-4 hours doing that scripting, getting it updated, making sure it looks all pretty and things like that. So yes, from that side, it took longer. However, this is the second customer who's asked for this kind of thing. So if you have a customer who's asking for something a lot, having the script done once, where it's prompting you for different enterprises or groups, and then allowing it to be rerun whenever you need it to, can save you a lot of time in the long run. And the other thing I'd mention is if you have someone in your team who's, they may be level 1 you help desk, but they have a passion for coding, get them to have a look at it. Maybe having someone else's eyes onto something like this that you may not be aware of that people in your business are doing all the time, get them to have a look, see what they can think of as well. Get them to mess around with it, and it's a good way of skilling up some of your more junior people in your business as well. Back to you.
So thanks, Mitch, that's fantastic. We did have one question, and that question is there any plans for partners to be able to collaborate, share scripts they find useful, etc.?
Definitely. I do need to discuss the scripts that we saw today. I do need to discuss with a few people internally just to make sure I can share them, but they probably will be shared at the next Access to Text. And as for partners being able to share stuff between each other and all that, we are building a partner dev community. So that is something that's in the works. It's very early stages this time. So please be patient with us as we work out how we wish to proceed with this, but it is something we are discussing.
Cool, that's all the questions we've got for that one. Thank you. And we'll move on quickly. So just the final updates for this particular session. So pretty much the same final update I give almost every month. Tesla CLI update. Again, there is no update as yet. We will have an update once we have an update. So they will give us 30 days notice, as I've said before. And at the moment, we don't have that update. So any more questions? So I'll leave it for a minute or so if anyone has any more questions, and then we'll close off. Give you a moment. I'd hum and give you some waiting music, but my humming's not great, so I won't do that. I'm not sure if Mitch is better than me.
No one needs that.
Oh, we've got an all good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right. Looks like there's no questions from anyone in particular, but if you do have any questions, please send them through to your PGM or anyone else that you, or your SC that you're dealing with. We're quite happy to answer any questions. Oh, hang on. Teams Enhanced. Can you see it in VoIP?
No. So Teams Enhanced, if they have answered the call with Webex or a physical phone, we can pull some of that data. If they've answered the call with Teams, because it goes into the Teams ecosystem and it's encrypted and we can't pull that data at this stage. So it's the same for Teams Channel or Teams Basic. It enters their ecosystem and then we kind of lose it at this stage. Our engineering team are trying to do something similar to what they did with Webex and being able to pull that data, but it is in the works at this stage.
Awesome. Leave it a few seconds more and we'll change the profile. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We hope that you've really learned something from our session today, and we will see you next month for more exciting Access to Text, as well as Mitch going through some more API information. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you later.